to our channel here as we kick off Detroit Association Black Storytellers 4-hour storytelling, 7 p.m. Now, you know, I am Pamela, a teller and your host for this evening, and we're going to dive right in on our topic today, which is the theme of resilience. When I think about resilience, capacity to handle, go through, recover, bounce back, all of the above. I've got some help today, though. We've got some storytellers that's going to talk about the, fact of resilience. But here's the thing, not just any storytellers. We have our elders here with us today. That's right. We've got 3 of our junior elders here that are going to help us on this evening. And before we get started, what I want to do is let you know this episode has been brought to you by Everybody Shines Together, Detailing and Wash. We're going to go to the break in a moment, but we're going to bring our first teller up when we return. Check this out.
Tried the rest? Now try the best and experience a professional auto detailing with Everybody Shine Together mobile detailing wash. They'll travel to you at your home, your apartment, condo, or place of business. That's right, no car too big, no car too small. Everybody Shine Together will detail them all. Just call 313-671-6098. 313-671-6098. Tell them Dab sent you.
With that, let's get right into it. All right, that's how we do it. Our first speaker this evening is Elder Cheryl Pryor.
Cheryl Pryor, known as Madioni, started retelling stories heard from family gatherings. Over time, she began to embrace one of Maya Angelou's famous quotes: "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Madioni, please tell your stories.
Good evening. My first story today is The Jealous Farmer, brought to you or written by Granddaddy Junebug. There was a jealous farmer, and he made an absolute fool of himself. And he was jealous of everything and everyone, especially his next-door neighbor's prize mule. You know, he plotted and planned until he figured out a way how to kill that mule. So late one night, he dug a hole, and it was long, it was wide, and it was deep. And then he decided to lay a trail of oats from the hole to where that prize mule sleeps. Now, you know, that jealous farmer was an evil man, and that's no jive, because he planned to bury that poor mule alive. So when that mule woke up and saw these oats all around his feet, what do you think he did? What any mule would do. He commenced to eat. And he ate, and he ate, as if he would never eat oats again. And of course, just as the farmer had planned, when the prize mule got to the hole, he fell in. And of course, the farmer, that jealous farmer, when he heard the noise, he ran from his shack, grabbed his shovel, and commenced his throwing dirt. Well, that mule did not like that dirt. You see, mules don't ever like dirt on their backs. And what he did at first was to grit his teeth and frown. But then he decided he was going to shake it off and stomp it down. Can I get you to say, shake it off and stomp it down? And that farmer, he was shoveling so fast and so often, you would have thought that shovel would have caught on fire. But what was that mule doing? Shaking it off and stomping it down. That jealous farmer he was shoveling so fast, he didn't have time to turn around. Because if he had, he would have noticed that that mule had risen to a higher level that was even with the ground. Now, I want you to know that as I stand here today, that farmer is still flying around because while that jealous farmer turned his back, that mule kicked him all the way into next week. So if you have dirt like insults and prejudices and pressure to do bad things, what you going to do? You're going to shake it off and stomp it down and rise to a higher level. And if those obstacles are inside, like the way you think or the way you act, you're going to have to stop, change your ways, and remember that as you go through this life, you're going to have troubles on your back. And so as you learn and grow, what are you going to do? You're going to shake it off and stomp it down. And that's my first story about resilience. You know, our host earlier today asked you, what is resilience? And the definition that I'm going to use today is probably very similar to hers. But mine is the ability to withstand and overcome difficulties, being tough. And I want to share with you a story about a woman who was tough. And some of you may know her name, and some of you may not. Well, I was born enslaved in 1818 by enslaved parents. Therefore, I came to this earth with God-like thoughts. However, I was restrained by chains and abhorrent behaviors. And when I was 20, I was raped by my plantation's owner's friend, and I had my son. But still, I have some amazing skills. Now, I eventually did get my freedom, and I started two organizations. One that I founded, and the other I co-chaired. And my name is Elizabeth Hobbs Hickley. My biological father was Armistede Burwell. But the father that I loved and knew was George Pleasant Hobbs. And he was my mother's husband. He was also an enslaved man, and he worked on another farm that was nearby. My mother, Agnes, and most people call her Aggie, was a seamstress. And when I was very young, she began to teach me to sew, stitch by stitch. Now, I remember my first job, or the first position that I held on the plantation, and that was when I was 4 years old, and I was told to watch the baby. Well, the baby was rocking in the cradle and fell on the floor. And do you know, I got beaten severely for my carelessness. Well, life continues on. I learned how to knit socks and perform other chores. When I was around 7, Mr. Burwell came and told my mother that he had made arrangements for George to come and live with us. Oh, we were so excited about that. But that was short-lived. Because after a short while, after George was there with us, Mr. Burwell came to our home and said, I have a letter here that states that George must leave and go with the enslavers in the West. And he only had 2 hours to say goodbye. Well, he did leave, and he was gone forever. But amazingly, he could write. Now, this is a rarity within, this is a rarity for those people who are enslaved. Because most enslaved people were barred from learning to read and write. But my mother, who was educated, could also read and write. And she taught me to read, stitch by stitch. As I was growing older, I saw an auction. And Mr. Burwell had purchased some hogs. And he was a little short. So he had the brilliant idea to auction the cook's baby, Little Joe. They brought Little Joe in, and Little Joe is happy and smiling. And then Mr. Burwell places him on the scale, and then he sells him per pound, just like he did the hog. And he became angry at Little Joe's mother, because of course she was grieving, and he whipped her. He whipped her. And of course, Mr. Burwell always wanted to see his enslaved people smile. Horrible. But time goes on, and now I have become the seamstress. Now my mother is responsible for all of the sewing that goes on in the Burwell household. They have 10 children, so she's got a lot to do. And so I wanted to help her, and I did. Now I'm 14, and Mr. Burwell decides that he's going to send me to his eldest son, Robert, who lives in North Carolina with his wife, Anna. So I go to North Carolina. In North Carolina, I am the only servant they have. And I do the work of 3 servants. And then you know what? They beat me constantly for no reason at all. Now during this time while I'm there, Robert's friend raped and beat me continuously. And as a result, my son George was born. Fortunately, a little while later, Mr. Armistead Burwell died. And so my son and I, we left and went back to Virginia. Now there, I lived with Mrs. Burwell, her daughter, and her husband, Hugh Garland. Now they're not doing well financially. And so they decide to move to St. Louis, Missouri. Well, they thought, or he thought, that he was going to be able to sustain himself. And so he told us that he was going to hire out my mother. Oh, I protested. I'll do it. I will sew for others. Now, I have a reputation now. And people knew me as a dressmaker and a seamstress. So when I set out and people were aware that I was here, the elite ladies of St. Louis were all my patrons. Now the other thing about St. Louis, in St. Louis, there are several communities of free African Americans. And I've been thinking about freedom myself. I mean, actually from birth. And so I went to Mr. Garland and I approached him about the idea of buying my freedom. Do you know he got angry and told me to never bring that up again? But time went on. And I was not deterred. Because a little later, he was running short of money. And so he offered and said, I'll take $1,200 for you and your son. Now he knew when he offered that $1,200 that was a lot of money. However, I said, okay. And now I had a solid commitment to my freedom. Now during this time, there's a man that, has been talking to me, several times, trying to get me to marry him. But I wouldn't marry because I did not want to have any more children who were going to be born enslaved. So I eventually decided to go ahead and marry him. Now I was so happy that day, but that too was short-lived. Now let me tell you, I don't want to dwell on Mr. Heckley, but he was not my helpmate at all. As a matter of fact, he was missing most of the time. But time moves forward, and as luck would have it, one of my patrons comes to my house and says to me, you have friends in St. Louis, and we're going to take care of, or we're going to pay what is needed. We're going to pay that $1,200. And do you know they did within 3 days? My freedom I gained on November 13th, 1838. I was free not only by man's laws, but by God's as well. And of course I had to pay the ladies back. And I did so, because now I'm not spending my time taking care of the Garland household. I'm only sewing. So I quickly paid them. And once I paid them, I decided that I'm going to move to Washington, D.C. So my son and I leave to go to Washington, D.C. And again, because my reputation has preceded me, the women of Washington, D.C., all of the elite, and they knew of my skill. And when I got there, I was fortunate to have plenty of patrons. Now I want to move a little faster and move forward. I started an organization, and it was a contraband relief organization that I co-founded. And this is after the death of Mrs. Lincoln's son. And that progressed, and I got donations from everybody. And the other thing I did was I wrote my memoirs. And I told all about my enslavement, my time in the White House, and Mrs. Lincoln, because she and I had become really close. However, what I want you to remember is that out of all of these events that took place, my legacy are my words, my dresses, and the accomplishments that I made. Do you know today, I want you to go see my dresses in the Smithsonian Museum of American History. And also go find my quilts that are displayed at Kent State University. And remember, never give up on yourself. Thank you.
No. Never give up.
Never.
Okay. Oh my gosh, resilience indeed. Oh, let me ask you this. Out of all the people you could have chosen to speak about, why did you choose that particular story for resilience?
Well, I hate to be redundant, but because she was such a resilient woman, and we don't speak of her, and I don't think enough people know about her. And there's even been a question about, you know, when she wrote a memoir, because she got a lot of criticism about that, because first of all, she was a black woman, she could read and write, she was privy to the going-ons in the White House, and she had a personal relationship with Mary Lincoln.
Okay. And so she was privy to the White House ins and outs.
Yes, and she wrote about them in her memoir.
If you could share this, what motivated you to not just become a storyteller, but to join us here today?
Well, I think most parents and most adults have been telling stories all the time. Even as children, we tell stories. However, when I was teaching, I taught high school, and I had some children who were really having trouble reading. And so I began to tell them stories about history. And they seemed to like it. And later I found out about DABS. I met what I call Super Elder Alma Greer. And she said, girl, come on over here. And that's how I started.
How many years?
I don't even know. I don't know. 12, something like that.
And thus being an elder now.
That's something I have to get used to.
So please, thank you for being the elder that you are and what you bring to the table. And if anyone wanted to contact you directly, how would they do that?
Well, my stage name is Mattione, and you can call me at 313-506-0057. And I usually do stories about African and African Americans. But I've had the privy of being in character and also telling their story.
Fantastic. Well, thank you once again. And we're going to also take a break right now after we hear back from the sponsors. And we'll come back with the second speaker. Take a break.
Tried the rest? Now try the best and experience a professional auto detailing with Everybody Shine Together mobile detailing wash. They'll travel to you at your home, your apartment, condo, or place of business. That's right, no car too big, no car too small. Everybody Shine Together will detail them all. Just call 313-671-6098. 313-671-6098. Tell them Dab sent you.
That's right. Everybody shine together. You know, I'm going to just say this. They had my car rolling off as if it rolled real off the assembly line again. Immaculate. So just, pick up the phone. No car too big, no car too small. Give them a call. Everybody shine together. Next, we'll have our second speaker, Resilience. Welcome, Elder Gwendolyn Lewis.
Gwendolyn Lewis has found her niche as an interactive storyteller who brings life to stories and biographies. Through her company, Let's Hear It Again with Gwen, she shares multicultural themed stories. Well, Elder Gwen, let's hear it again.
How do you be resilient in this world of complexities? How do you be resilient with all the inconsistencies that are going on in this world? Things like wars, rumors of wars, poverty, illiteracy, and many, many others. Well, I want to name a few more. We have gangs, we have drugs, we have killings within our neighborhood. How do you become resilient? Be resilient when the people that you most believe in, your family and friends, let you down. Maya Angelou said, In her point, I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trug me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise, I rise, I rise. A Google definition of resilience is that when the heart suffers and then grow from any obstacles that may have happened. I have my own feeling about resilience, and that is, it comes from nothing other than your DNA, your consciousness, and your passion and what you want to do and succeed most in life. Well, I would like to illustrate those comments with my two interesting but different stories. The name of my first story is Zomo the rabbit. This African story takes place in a jungle. While these animals, the tall giraffe, the elephant, and the monkey, were standing around having a conversation. Then all of a sudden, the giraffe said, "We haven't seen Zomo in a long, long time." Then she remembered, you know, if we kind of sing that song about Zomo, for some reason, our friend the rabbit seems to appear. So they all began to sing the song. I may be short, I may be small, but I'm clever. I'm clever. I may be short, I may be small, but I'm clever. I'm clever. Before they were able to sing it the third time, here came Zomo the rabbit just bouncing along. He was so glad to see him. But they asked, "What have you been doing?" And he said, "I have been clever. You know, I learned that you can study about the tracks and the prints of animals and know which one come around your home. Did you know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west? I am being clever." He said, "But I want to be wise now." Now Giraffe knew what to say. She said, "Well, if you go up the big mountain to see the mountain king, he will give you wisdom." Zomo didn't think anything about that. He climbed up that mountain singing his song. I may be short, I may be small, but I'm clever. I'm clever. I may be short, I may be small, but I'm clever. When he got up to the top of the mountain and saw the king, he shared with him that he wanted to be wise. Now with this, the mountain king kind of shook his head. He said, "You want to be wise? I don't want to disappoint you. There were many animals who left here to be wise, and they never came back." Zomo once again said, "I may be short, I may be small, but I'm clever." He said, "Okay, let me tell you the 3 events that you have to do. Number 1, you must bring me the scales of the dancing fish. Number 2, you must bring me the milk of the horned cow. And number 3, you must bring me the tooth of the wild and mean leopard." So with this, Zomo went down the mountain, went back to his home, got his bag, placed a bowl in it and a drum, and threw it across his shoulder and went off to the river. He started playing his drum, playing it and playing it. It got louder and louder and louder and louder and faster and faster. And all of a sudden, that fish jumped out of the water and landed on the shore. Now he started dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing and twirling around from all that music, and his scales fell off. He was embarrassed, so he jumped back into the waters. Well, Zomo just took his drum and scooted the scales into the bottom, placed it back on his back, and he proceeded to his second event, which was to get the milk from the horned cow. When he finally got there to see him, he decided that I think I will try going up that tree. He went to the top of the tree and shouted to that cow, "I bet you can't get me." Well, this cow was willing for the challenge. He looked over there where he was, and he began to run towards that tree as fast as he could with his horns out, and they got stuck in the tree. Zomo came down that tree, took out the bowl for the milk, and he proceeded to milk that cow, singing, "I may be short, I may be small, but I'm clever." He took the bowl of milk, sealed it up, placed it back into his backpack, and proceeded to the third event. When he got there, where he knew the lepers stayed, up on the hill, he decided to work on the time when they would come down the hill. So he took out the scales and placed them on the slope of the hill. He took out the milk and drizzled it on the scales. He moved a huge rock at the bottom of the hill, hid behind it, and in time, those leopards began to head towards that edge of the hill. Well, the first one slipped on the milk and rolled down, 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 and hit his mouth on top of the rock. Boom! And that tooth popped right into the air, and Zomo jumped up to catch it. He placed his milk container, his drum container, and the tooth in his backpack, zipped it up, and ran as fast as he could back to the mountain. He climbed it higher and higher, singing his song, and once he got to the top of the mountain, he saw the mountain king. He said, "I have the scales, I have the milk, and I have the tooth." Oh, that king was so happy. He jumped up and down that at last someone he was going to give wisdom. You may be short, you may be small, but you are clever, and I say you are wise. While he was saying that, he looked over his shoulder, and the mountain king saw a skinny skinned fish running up the mountain. He saw a cow without horns running up the mountain. And then he saw a toothless leopard. He said, "You may be short, you may be small, you were clever, and now you're wise, but are you fast?" Zomo looked over there, noticed what was happening, and he said, "I may be short, I may be small, I'm clever, and I have wisdom, and I am succeeded the resistance that was placed upon him. He had succeeded. Now, this other story I said I would share with you is quite different, but have the same meaning.
It is called the Tar Paper School story. In this book, it starts off with this little girl, about 15 years old, sitting in a parent-teacher association meeting with her mother and father. She was hearing the same thing they have heard for many weeks and months about the upkeep of their school. Now I need to share with you why this has become such an important thing. The white schools in Farmville, Virginia, had an infirmary, new books, excellent heating system, excellent, beautiful auditorium with up-to-date amplification. However, this John Moulton High School that Barbara Rose Johns attended, the all-black school, had been overcrowded, had a center building, and had a few buildings outside. Well, these buildings had cardboard and tar paper was around it. Then, around the windows were chicken wires. The kids called it the chicken coop. Right in the center of the main building, there was a pot-bellied stove. Now, if you were sitting too close, it was hot. The same day, if you were sitting too far away, you needed your coat, your scarf, and your hat. Well, Barbara was tired of listening to all of this. So she went to her teacher, Miss Inez, and asked her, well, can you do something about it? And she told her, you take care of it. Now, Barbara didn't know what to do. She decided to go into her secret spot, which was the wooded area next to her farm. For days, she tried to remember and figure out what could she do, what could her plan be. But she learned, like all the other kids that went to Sunday school, that prayer could make a difference. So she gave a prayer to come up with a plan similar like this. Dear Heavenly Father, ye that covers over all of us, we would like for you to take care of us in making a decision on what to do about our education, our place of education. Lay hands on me that I may lead the school and the student body to a better way of living. Well, would you believe? Within 2 days, she had a plan. Barbara Rose John went to the 12th grade students and asked them how they felt. And they all agreed. They couldn't stand that place. They knew something had to be done. So what they did is decide to have a boycott in the spring. An opportune time for some, but not for everybody. Well, this was the time that they have research papers, they are getting their grades together, and also the graduates are trying to make a decision. But they continue conversating about the spring. They talked to the students who were leaders in the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade too, so they could all work together. So on April the 23rd, 1951,
there was an assembly in the John Moulton High School. You may wonder, how did they get them together? Well, the president of the senior class, changed his voice on the telephone and got the principal to go downtown saying there was a disturbance by other high school students. How did they get the assembly settled? Well, Barbara forged the teacher's name and principals' names and those involved to set assemblies. They all came down because it was assembly day anyway. When she got on the stage, everybody was shocked. Nobody knew who Barbara Rose was. She was one of the quiet students within the school. But when she finished, they all rose and walked out of the school, having a boycott. Now, they did call the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Peoples, to come and to advise them. They said, no, we're not coming, just send us a letter. Go back to school. They refused to go back to school. 2 days later, those representatives came down and talked to them. But they couldn't satisfy the students. They said, well, we're not working on individual facilities. We're working on integrating the whole school system throughout the country of the United States of America. They refused to go back into the school. They wanted to be part of it. Well, time went on. There was a few things that deterred them, but they didn't stop. Number one, in some of the big meetings, the former principal even said, why don't you go back to school? You're changing your agenda. This can't really happen. There were people who were sabotaging their bus. They not only broke the bus down, but the superintendent said, we're not going to fix it and allow you to go back into your school. Then there was that fabulous cross that's usually put up by the Ku Klux Klan and burned on the ground. Everybody went to Barbara for advice. She said, be calm. Good things are going to happen. Now, it was 2 weeks later when the representatives from the NAACP said, we have our case together. Go back to school. And they presented this case to the Prince Edward County School Board. And they presented it to the board. And the board said, my goodness, we are not going to follow this. And they didn't. They didn't. Knowing that was going to happen, the NAACP had a class action suit. Not only because of Barbara Rose John's feelings about this as a boycott, but other school districts, Kansas, Delaware, and Washington. This class action suit became the landmark decision of the Brown versus Board of Education. Now, things did happen in their time. And the thing that absolutely happened was that her father and mom lost their job. They couldn't get credit, and as a result, they had to move. Barbara Rose, life was threatened, but as a result, she was sent to Montgomery, Alabama,
to stay with her uncle. Her uncle was the predecessor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church where Martin Luther King eventually became the pastor. Because of that nonviolent protest, even though there was resistance, she and others went out to be successful, and they were. Like I said, it's not just your heart being broken, not just you surviving. I believe is in the DNA, your confidence and your passion. That's how you can rise. You can rise. You can rise.
Rise, rise, you can rise.
Yes.
You know, so fitting to hear those stories from you as you are what you consider to be a storyteller that prays or telling stories of children.
Yes, I do. I enjoy that.
How did you get started with that enjoyment?
Well, I was it's a combination of a lot of things. I was a librarian in Detroit Public School System. I learned to read, as I say, upside down. However, and tell stories to the kids.
Yeah.
I learned to read and show the pictures. But when I joined my storytelling thing, I was able to really look at the children and see how they were inspired.
It's a personal reward.
Yes, it has been.
In fact, do you have a book? I think you do.
Yes, I do. It's kind of titled Plant the Seed, Read, 101 Activities to Motivate Children to Read. Parents used to ask me, what am I going to do with my kids when I get home? It took me a while to get it done, but yes, it's a user-friendly book that parents can use with their young people. And as they use it, they don't have to go and spend elaborate money. They would have to follow up with those activities with supplies they have in their basement or at the dollar store.
Love it, love it, love it. And so with that being said, how would someone reach out to you if they wanted to obtain you or, to the folks out?
Well, I have a website. It's GwenStoryteller.com. Let me repeat that. GwenStoryteller.com. My telephone number is 313-467-9294.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Elder, for doing exactly what I knew you could do. Share some relevant stories. Relatable to children as well.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And just for a moment, next we'll have just a word from our behind the scenes crew regarding that. Be right back.
Hello, my name is Michelle Perry. I am the historian for the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. Hopefully you have enjoyed all of our virtual stories on YouTube, as well as on podcast Buzzsprouts, or possibly when you came to see us in our live concerts down through the years. Detroit Association of Black Storytellers, or DABS as we call ourselves, is a 501c3 organization. That means all donations are tax deductible and no amount is too small. We are able to put these programs on because of your generous support. And your generous support will enable us to continue with our program of servicing the community. If you want to make a donation, click on PayPal, DETROITABS@gmail.com. Or you can mail your donations to Detroit Associations of Black Storytellers at 1401 West 4th Street, P.O. Box 441004, Detroit, Michigan 48224. May you have and blessings. And thank you from all of the members of Detroit Associations of Black Storytellers. I say.
Thank you so much. And, we really depend upon what you all do for us each and every day here at DAB. So, thank you in advance for what you do. Next, we're going to have our feature teller, our elder. Please welcome Elder Pam Johnson.
Our featured teller, Pam Jones, aka Jonesy, is an authentic storyteller who loves sharing personal stories of resilience to inspire others. Jonesy, take it away.
Good evening. So, let's talk about resilience. I'm going to define resilience once again. Resilience is the ability to respond, to react, to recover from some adversity. Now, they say you don't know how truly resilient you are until you face adversity. Well, I'd like to share some things with you. As a parent, you know we are responsible for our children. And a lot of us think that we know what we would do in any given situation, no matter what it is. We always like to sit back and say, oh, I would have did this, or I would have did that. But we find out when we're faced with the unknown or something that happens, all of a sudden, things change. As I said, we are responsible for our children. They rely on us for food, clothing, and shelter. And most importantly, they rely on us for protection. So most of us like to think that we would stand in harm's way. And that is true. When faced with adversity or some danger to our children, we're right there, right? Well, I like to think that as well. So my first story that I'm going to share with you on resilience has taught me a lot of things. And it has also taught my family some things about me. It was a beautiful spring day, and I had planned a mother and daughter outing. It was a Saturday morning. About noon, we left the house, and we traveled to the mall. Now, we had been to this mall many times before, and I have to tell you, I park in the same place like most people do because I've lost my car before. And we've gone inside this mall. First store is a pet store. Now, we had been in this mall many times in this pet store. And the day was going to go beautiful. We were going to stroll through the mall, we were going to shop, and we were going to have a good meal. But when we got in that pet store, things changed. Now let me tell you how the store is laid out. They have animals on one side, and they have the fish and all of the birds and everything on the other side. So we always start out to the left because the pets would go all around the store. And we would start from the left looking at the animals. Now we are dog people, we love dogs. But we would stop and look at the cats and the bunnies, particularly because it was Easter time. So we started out in the store looking at each one. Oh, how cute they are. Look at the little bunnies and the kittens, and we're going up and down, looking at all of the animals, and they are wonderful. They're beautiful. And we get excited. We get excited because we're out, we're enjoying ourselves. Now, these kittens and dogs and everything are looking for people to adopt them. And of course, my daughter gets all caught up in the thing, and no, we're not taking anything home. But we're still admiring all the cute little animals, up and down. Now, there's people in the background, and there's a conversation going on. paying attention. We're still looking at these animals. And as we get closer to the middle of the store, I hear a conversation. And the conversation in the background goes something like this. What does it eat? How long is it? Will it get any bigger? Now something in my mind tells me, you don't want to look. But did I pay attention? No, I didn't. I kept looking down and trying to figure out in my infinite wisdom what could be long and get fat or grow any bigger, and why are they asking what it eats? Because from what I know, the four-legged animals on this side don't get real long. We know what they eat. And the fish and the birds on this side do not fit into that conversation. And I'm not paying attention still. I'm listening to the inner thoughts in my head. You don't want to look. So I keep looking down at all the animals. And then something forces me to stand up. And my eyeballs apparently didn't get the memo. Because before I knew it, I snatched my head around, and there it was. A reptile, just feet from me. I screamed. I started shaking my head, stomping my feet, yelling, and I don't know why. Because this thing was wrapped every which way around this lady's body. Before I knew it, I was gone. I took off. I started running through that store. I was knocking over displays. I was getting the heck up out of there. And when I got out in the corridor, in the mall, I shouted, Alicia, come out of there. Yes, I left my child in the store. But it didn't matter. I got out of there. So I moved back away from the door, and I called out again, Alicia, come out of there. By this time, here comes Alicia. Dragging her feet, looking at me like, what is your problem? And she says, I'm so embarrassed. You embarrassed? I snatched her little arms up, and that was the beginning and the end of our Mother's Day or our Mother's outing. Because I was no longer in the mood to shop. We ran out of that mall so fast and got in that car and took off. Now, Oprah Winfrey once said, turn your wounds into wisdom. And I did just that. But I don't want you to judge me. Because what we did from that day forward to not have that incident happen again, I would send my 10-year-old into the pet store ahead of me. And her job was to go inside, canvass the area, make sure there was nothing in there that I couldn't see. And before she left out, she would have to go up to the cashier and ask them if they had any reptiles. You see, your girl got some serious phobias, and I can't be caught off guard. So that is how I survived, and that was my resilience. And that was the end of us ever going back in that entrance again or in that store again. Now, my family laughs about that story. We still tell it today. She can't believe I left her child, or I left my child. She can't believe that I just took off and left her to fend for herself. Well, they learned that every man's for himself. And that's just the way it is when it comes to certain things. So they know to take care of themselves. I'll take care of me. Thank you. Now, there are times when we can prepare for resilience and how we're going to respond. And that's because we find ourselves in a certain situation. I like stories or news reports like Dateline, 2020, 48 Hours, 60 Minutes. I like all the Law and Order series, the trilogy. I like all of the Chicago, and I thoroughly enjoy Snap. But I feel that those shows have been beneficial. They have also taught me a lot. They have taught me to be really resilient. I feel that because of them, I feel like a detective. Like I can sniff out danger, maybe even solve it before it even happens. My favorite is Dateline. And so I'm going to share with you a dramatization of what I call one of my series. I titled this story, Dateline, The Paranoid Traveler. Well, it was 2022, the first time we were able to go on vacation, post-COVID. 7 days before Carnival's Mardi Gras. And we were with 10 family members from 3 different states. We were in for a grand time, looking forward to it. COVID locked us all in the house for years, it seemed like, and we were just ready to cut loose. So you know, when you go on the trip, not everybody wants to do the same thing at the same time. And the benefit of the ship is some can stay on the ship and some of us can get off. But there's a rule to getting off and taking an excursion. A very important rule. 2 things. The first one is to never book an excursion unless it is with a cruise line. Now, the reason being is that if the ship will leave on time, but if some reason that the excursion is late getting back, they will wait for you. And you won't become one of those people that everyone is waving at as the ship leaves on the pier. The second thing is for safety reasons. Well, I felt it was more than that. I felt it had something to do with cost. A lot of people talk about how these excursions are overpriced. So I decided to book one with a travel agent. This is a well-known travel agent, and I didn't think it would be any problem. And certainly it was a fraction of the cost. It was only 3 of us that were going on this excursion. That would be my niece, my daughter, and myself. So we get off the ship after a sea day, all excited, and we get on the pier and we start walking towards where all the buses are lined up. Now there's a row of buses, luxury liners that all say Carnival on the side of them, with gentlemen standing there in professional looking uniforms. We think we're gonna get on one of these buses. I look at my paper and it doesn't identify which bus we're supposed to get on. Okay, I walk up to one of the agents and they say, check with the booth. So I check with the booth and the gentleman says, you want to go that way, all the way down that way. All right, we get to walking and walking and walking and walking. And finally, when we get to the end, there's another booth with another guy in it, and I says, could you tell me where we're supposed to go? So he looks at my paper and he says, you want to go out this gate, and there'll be buses I'm trying to identify the doggone bus. Finally, I come up to a guy who is holding a sign, a hand-printed sign that has our tour name on it. Short guy, blue jeans and a t-shirt. It does have the business name on it, so I shows him the paper. He says, where are the other two people? I said, well, they're back there because one is walking with a cane. So, well, I didn't know where you were. So he said, well, you go back to the gate and I'll signal the bus to come. He steps out in the street and flags the guy on. Here comes a minivan, a 6-passenger minivan. Now, a red flag went up. And the red flag went up because we had to get in here, and I guess I was assuming that there were going to be multiple people on this excursion, and it was just the 3 of us. 2 drivers, both male, 3 females getting in this vehicle. Something inside of me said, don't do it, but I did it anyway. We got inside, and we took off. The next red flag came up when he says, he pulls out this jug and offered us a drink. We passed. The 3rd flag came up when he told us about what a great cook his wife was. And we could, because we had time, it was a 3-hour tour, we had time to stop by his house for a meal. At that point, I reached in my pocket, I pulled out my phone, and I started texting. FYI, I am now texting my husband and my brother-in-law. We are in a blue minivan. License plates, unknown. I'm not sure what's going on, but I don't feel safe. Just want to let you know, check back in about 20 minutes. Now, the rest of the trip as we were moving along went pretty good until we got to the winery. I was feeling pretty confident. We were going where we were supposed to go. We went to 2 other places before, and we got out of there and survived them. So my niece and my daughter are laughing at me because I'm skeptical. The whole time I could not relax. I could not enjoy it, and they saw it on my face. When we get into this winery, we walk into this room. The tour guide is behind us. He backs out. We're in this pitch black room, and in comes another gentleman. I soon realized the reason why the room is black is because we're in a winery. The barrels are all in here. We watch a movie as to how this is supposed to go. We get to the front of the other part of the room where we're watching a 15-minute movie. I'm still skeptical because it's only 3 of us in this theater. As the gentleman walked out, he said he'll be back when the movie was over. I turned around and I saw him go out, and I got some relief by seeing the lobby full of people. Whew. That was close. Now I'm feeling safe again because inside of that lobby is where they did some wine tasting. When the movie was over and we got out there, I'm still not 100. And as we begin to test the drinks, I put my cup up to me, and there was no way I was going to swallow that wine. I pretend like I was tasting that wine while I watched the other 2 really drink it. I figured somebody had to be around and coherent to see what was going on, right? My daughter said, oh, you're going to let me drink the poison, right? Well, once again, I'm just trying to make sure that somebody will be able to tell the story. So once we finished, we were escorted out and across the street where they really sell the bottles of wine. So we had a good time after all. It was the whole paranoia thing, and by the time it was over, we on our way back to the ship. I picked up my phone to text, everything is okay. We're on our way back to the ship, to find out my messages never went through in the first place. Oh, I was so distraught. What if we hadn't really been in danger? I mean, everything I seen on Dateline in 2020 and 60 Minutes all told me what to do. and it all failed. But we survived. And I'll tell you the lesson I did learn. I will never purchase another excursion unless it is with the cruise line. Our cruise this June has been booked through the cruise line, and I don't care how much it costs because safety is first. But resilient, we were. Thank you.
Danger, Bill Robinson.
Yes.
That's what comes to mind. Oh my gosh, Elder, you didn't disappoint. Resilience.
Yes.
Okay? Resilience. And so I was reminded of somewhat of what you shared in the first, we go back a long way.
Right.
Okay, and my gosh, I can only imagine what that was like. You said, look,
Terrified.
come out of there. I'm not going back
I
in.
wasn't going back. She'd still be there today.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That and what, elevators?
Yes.
Okay, we understand. But I've always enjoyed how you go about giving your story. What's your inspiration?
Well, my inspiration is drawn from the stories being true and the lessons that we learn from them. And they say if you can't laugh at yourself, you better laugh. So I try to turn them into something positive and something that I can learn from.
Absolutely. And share for others to learn.
Oh, definitely, and share with others.
And so you've been telling these type of stories about how long?
Well, I realized as long as I've been telling stories, because I know those rides from picking my daughter up from school, it would always be a teachable moment in the car, and I would take a scenario and use it and tell a story about it.
Well, and prime example, right?
Right.
There we go. Now listen, is there a way that, how can one reach out to you?
My email is Jonesy, the storyteller, @gmail.com.
Straightforward.
Straightforward.
Jonesy, the storyteller @gmail.com.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that information about resilience. Because certainly, danger
is all around us.
It certainly is. We got to push through.
Yes.
Speaking of pushing through, thank you once again. We'll be right back with our sponsors. Check this out.
Tried the rest? Now try the best and experience a professional auto detailing with Everybody Shine Together Mobile Detailing Wash. They'll travel to you at your home, your apartment, condo, or place of business. That's right, no car too big, no car too small. Everybody Shine Together will detail them all. Just call 313-671-6098. 313-671-6098. Tell them Dab sent you.
You know what? Everybody shines together. We want to say thank you as our sponsor for that. Just call Trinell and he will make sure to attend to your needs. Well, folks, that's all we got for today. I hope you've enjoyed what we prepared for you guys, resilience, because that is key to self-preservation. Yes, it is. And so, as a matter of fact, I want to take a moment to say thank you to each one of our talents for helping us out today, as well as to the Hannah Center for always allowing us to host our shows here. And tune in. Be sure to. Next month, we're going to have our men on the grill. That's right. Q and Tell. Hosted by Tone Ross. So be sure to set your calendars for that time. And I want to say a personal thank you to all of you for helping us out and continuing support season after season. It's been my pleasure and my honor to host this season. And I will return in the behind the scenes crew for the next season. So here at Dabs, to all of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sante, good night, and God bless.
Thank you for attending tonight's program presented by the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. All rights of Dab's Fourth Friday Story Hour is a copyright of the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers and cannot be rebroadcasted or re-recorded without the written permission or consent of the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers, Incorporated. If you missed any of tonight's performance, you can tune into Dab's podcast for a replay on Buzzsprouts or whoever your podcast provider is. Or come here, the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers YouTube page. Subscribe, it's free. If you live in the Detroit area and have an interest in becoming a storyteller, please contact Dabs at dabsstorytellers@gmail.com. That's dabsstorytellers@gmail.com, or call 313-442-3227. That's 313-442-3227. If you happen to live outside of the Detroit area and interested in becoming a storyteller, please visit the National Association of Black Storytellers website or call 410-947-1117 or email at questions@nabsinc.org. That's either call 410-947-1117 or email at questions@nabsinc.org. NABS will connect you with a storytelling association in a city near you. Hello, everyone. The Detroit Association of Black Storytellers are so pleased you joined us tonight. Dad's Fourth Friday Story Hour with the program on resilience. Join us next month for our Season 3 finale as we bring you another exciting story hour. And this one you will not want to miss. It will be something to see. Cue and Tell, The Men Are on the Grill. Friday, May 26, 2023. Doors open at 6:55. Concert starts at 7 p.m. right here on the Detroit Association Black Storytellers YouTube page. We will have two amazing storytellers. Larry Castleberry, master storyteller Ivory Williams, with your host, Tone Ross. Take a minute, subscribe to this YouTube page so that you will never miss this program starting time or any new content we may post. Subscribing is free. Again, thank you for joining us, the Young Elders, with On Resilience, with stories by Elder Gwendolyn Lewis, Elder Pamela Jones, and Elder Cheryl Pryor, with your host, Pamela Williams. Music directors, Mama Michelle McKinney. Camera technician is Brother James Graham. Production engineer is Jasmine Ross. Public relations specialist is Pamela Williams. Production engineer and director is Tone Ross. Along with the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers, we thank you for attending the Dad's Fourth Friday Story Hour. See everyone next month, Friday, May 26th, 7 p.m. for the Season 3 finale, with the Men of Dabs bringing you Cue and Tell, The Men Are on the Grill. Please be safe. Peace and blessings to you all. Until next time, Asante Sana.